Good morning, afternoon, and evening. How y'all doing today? Welcome back to Mr. Morrow's Algebra 1 and 2 class. Today we're going to continue with our fractions, decimals, and percents lesson. This is going to be part 2. And in part 2, we're going to focus on fraction, decimal, and percent conversions. If you remember from fractions, decimals, and percents part 1, fractions, decimals, and percents are really all the same value, just written in a different form. So, for example, very simple one. We know that 1/2 equals 0.5, which equals 50%. So although 1/2, 0.5, and 50% are written in different forms, the value is the same. So any fraction can be converted to a decimal, which can then be converted to a percent. Any percent can be converted to a decimal, which then can be converted to a fraction, and vice versa, any combination of those. Now, 1/2 to 0.5 to 50% is pretty easy. Most people know that. But the question is, does everyone know why and how they went from 1/2 to 0.5 to 50%? Today, we're going to answer that question. So let's do it. I'm excited. It's a good lesson today. Converting decimals into fractions. Pretty simple stuff here. All you have to do in order to convert a decimal into a fraction is to read the decimal correctly and write out as a fraction. By read the decimal correctly, you have to use the place values, okay? So for example, if you see, just to make it easy, if you see 0.6, okay, that's not 0.6, that's really 6/10. This is 6 6/10. That's reading a decimal correctly by place value. And remember, we learned this yesterday in part 1 of the fractions, decimals, and percents lesson. And we said that you read the number as if there were no decimal, and you end the number with the place value, okay, that it stands in, the last place value. So you read the decimal correctly and write out as a fraction, and then you go ahead and reduce the fraction to lowest terms if needed. So let's see how this works. Let's convert each decimal value into a fraction and, of course, reduce to the lowest terms if needed. So we have the first one. I know everyone's going to say, oh, it's 0.375. Yes, but read correctly, it's 375 thousandths. So it's 375 thousandths. Why? Well, because you have the 375, and then the last place value of this number ends in a thousands. Remember, we have the tenths, hundreds, thousands. So we have 375 thousandths. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to reduce. So I know that since 375 ends in a 5 and 1000 ends in a 0, I can divide both the numerator and the denominator by 5. Remember, that's how we simplify. We could go ahead and divide by a greater factor, but sometimes you don't know the greatest common factor, so I'm going to show you how to do it from scratch. So 375 divided by 5 is going to be 75. 1000 divided by 5 is 200. 75 and 200 are also divisible by 5. So we're going to divide both the numerator and denominator by 5, giving me 15 40ths. Then we're going to divide the numerator and the denominator by 5, which gives me 3/8, which is 375 thousandths in reduced fraction form. Okay, 0.5. 0.5 is equal to 5/10 when read correctly. And I can divide 5 to both the numerator and the denominator, so this is exactly why 0.5 equals 1/2. 0.62 is properly read as 62 hundredths. 62 hundredths, so 62 over 100. I can divide 2 to both the numerator and the denominator, and that will give me 31 50ths. Okay, and I cannot go any further from there. And then I have 2.9. 2.9, whenever I have a whole number and a decimal, when I go ahead and convert this, please know that it's going to become a mixed number because this read correctly is 2 and 9/10, where the decimal represents the end. So this is 2 and 9/10. There are no common factors between 9 and 10, so that is simplified, and we are done converting decimals to fractions. Pretty simple. Next, how do we convert fractions into decimals? Well, we can convert a fraction into a decimal very simply by, sorry about that, I'm having a little technical difficulty here. By simply dividing. Sorry about that. So we can convert fractions into decimals by simply dividing. And literally, that's what I mean. So if I have, for example, I want to convert each of these fractions into a decimal value, and I have 2/5. Go ahead and simply divide. So 5 goes into 2 how many times? Please remember that the denominator always goes outside. That is the divisor. And the numerator always goes on the inside. That is the dividend. So 5 cannot go into 2, but you go ahead and add your decimal. Bring it up so you don't forget. Add a 0. 5 goes into 20 4 times. So 0.4 is the decimal version of 2/5. 4/9. Well, I have 9 on the outside, and I have 4 on the inside. Add my decimal. Bring it up so I don't forget. Add a 0. 9 goes into 44 times. That's 36. Oh, we're going to have a repeating decimal here. It's just going to continue 0.4444 repeating. And at the end of the lecture, I'm going to talk to you about fractions that have a denominator of 9. I'm going to show you an easy conversion there. Okay, 3/4. Okay, everyone knows it's 0.75, but why? Well, that's because the 4 goes on the outside, the 3 on the inside, 3.0. Go ahead and bring that decimal up. 4 goes into 37 times, which is 28. I got 2 left over. Drop down a 0. 4 goes into 25 times, and that's completely perfect. Okay, so 3/4 equals 0.75 in decimal format. 15/25. Okay, now before you divide, you always want to try to see if you can simplify, if you can reduce. Because I promise you, if you reduce a fraction, you're not changing the value, you're just changing the appearance, okay? So if I go ahead and divide 5 to both top and bottom, to both the numerator and the denominator, I'm going to get 3/5. And then it's a much easier division. 5 goes into 3.0 6 times, all right, because that's 30. So 3/5 equals 0.6. So fractions to decimals, just go ahead and divide. Okay, converting a percent to a decimal, very simple as well. Very simple as well. All these skills are easy. We just sometimes forget them because we may not use them all the time. In order to convert a percent to a decimal, you simply divide the percent by 100 and drop the percent sign. Okay? So in other words, move the decimal 2 places to the left. So if I want to convert each of these percent to the decimals, I have 2.5, right? So 2.5%. So I want to divide by 100. In other words, I'm moving the decimal 2 places to the left. So I've got my 2.5%. I'm going to go 1, 2 places to the left, add a 0. So let's clean it up, 0.025, and I drop the percent sign. 42%. Remember that 42, if you don't see a decimal, it's always at the right, at the end of the number. It's like money. If I had $42, it's $42, okay? So if you don't see a decimal, it's at the far right of the number. So 42%, I want to turn into a decimal, so I'm going to go 1, 2 places to the left, which is 0.42. I drop the percent sign because I'm going from percent to decimal. 425%. My decimal's over here at, oh, sorry about that. My decimal's over here, so I'm going to go 1, 2 to the left, which equals 4.25. 25 as a decimal. 56.8%. I want to turn into a decimal, so I'm going to go 1, 2 places to the left, which equals 0.568, and I drop the percent sign, and that is how you go from percent to decimal. Now, converting decimal to percent, almost as easy, except you're just going to reverse it. Instead of dividing by 100, you're going to multiply the decimal by 100 and add the percent sign. So it's the exact opposite of going from percent to decimal. In order to go from decimal to percent, again, you multiply by 100. So you're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right, okay, to the right. Convert each decimal into a percent. Well, I have 0.36 or 36 hundredths. I want to turn that into a percent, so I'm going to literally move the decimal 1, 2 places to the right, which equals 36%. I add my percent sign. 7.25, 2 places to the right. I'm multiplying by 100, so I'm going to go 1, 2 places to the right, which equals 725%. I add the percent sign, right? If I have 0.008, I want to turn to a percent, so I'm going to go 1, 2 to the right with my decimal. I'm multiplying by 100, so that's going to give me 0.8%. Sometimes you can have a decimal of a percent. That's okay. That is legal. No worries. And then 28.82 in a percent, I'm going to go 1, 2 to the right because I'm multiplying by 100, and I've got 2,882%. Now, one way that I always like to remember my percent to decimal or decimal to percent, if you think about it, if I'm going from percent to decimal, doesn't decimal end in an L? Decimal, L, la, 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 L for left. So percent to decimal, 2 places to the left. That L at the end of decimal reminds you of that. If I'm going from decimal to percent, per R, the R for right. I'm going to go 2 places to the right. So that's a nice, easy way to remember. Percent to decimal, la, 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 L to the left, 2 places. Decimal to percent R for the right, 2 places to the right. Percent to decimal, 2 places to the left. Decimal to percent, 2 places to the right. All right. Let's practice. Put it all together. So I want to convert 5/8 into both a decimal and percent. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and divide. In order to go from a fraction to a decimal, I have to divide. So I'm going to go 8 on the outside, 5, add my decimal, bring it up so I don't forget, add my 0. 8 goes into 56 times, which is 48. Drop my 2, drop my 0. 8 goes into 20. 2 times, which is 16. I got 4, drop my 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. So 5/8 equals 0.625 as a decimal. Now I want to convert that to a percent. Well, okay. Here's my decimal. Now I want to convert it to a percent. So I'm going to take my decimal. I'm going to multiply by 100. I'm going to move 2 places to the right. So that equals 62.5%. Nice and simple. Okay, number 2, let's convert 0.45 both into a fraction and a percent. Well, 0.45 read correctly is 45. Sorry about that. Read correctly is 45 hundredths. Okay, 45 hundredths. Which, when I go ahead and reduce, I can divide 5 to both numerator and denominator. I get 9/20. So that's 0.45 or 45 hundredths converted to a fraction. Now to convert it to a percent, it's very simple. 0.45 into a percent, I'm going to move the decimal 2 places to the right. So that equals 45%. If I'm going to convert 52% into both a decimal value and a fraction, well, 52%, okay, I want to convert it to a decimal. I'm going to move the decimal 2 places to the left. So I'm going to go 1, 2 to the left, which equals 0.52. 0.52 is read as 52 hundredths. They're both even numbers, so using the divisibility test, I can convert that into 26 50ths. They're both even numbers. I can divide by 2 again to both the numerator and the denominator, giving me 13 25ths. Okay? Nice and easy. And now, last thing I want to just introduce to you, I think it's very important that everyone memorize this. It's not a requirement, but it is a strong suggestion. These are some decimal conversions to memorize, okay? You know how to do it, and I have faith that you can do it, and you need to have faith in yourself that you can do it. But that being said, sometimes it's easier and better just to know some basic facts. First of all, 1 over 1 equals 1. And guess what? I did that on purpose because anything over itself equals 1. So 7 over 7 is 1. 2,000 divided by 2,000 is 1. 6x divided by 6x is 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. 1/2, you should know it's 0.5. 1/3 is 0.333 or 0.3 repeating. 2/3 is 0.666 or 0.6 repeating. Okay, those are things you should know. 1/4 is 0.25. 3/4 is 0.75. 1/5 is 0.2. 2/5 is 0.4. 3/5 0.6. 4/5 0.8. The 6 aren't that common, but there's 2 that you should know. 1/6 is 0.16 repeating, and 5/6 is 0.83 repeating. I did not put the 2/6 because 2/6 is 1/3. I did not put the 3/6 because 3/6 is 1/2. I did not put the 4/6 because 4/6 equals 2/3. So I only went to the fractions that do not reduce to another known fraction. The eighths are important. 1/8 is 0.125. 3/8 multiply 0.125 times 3 is 0.375. 5/8 multiply 1.25 times 5, it's 0.625. 7/8 multiply 0.125 times 7, that gives you 8.75. The ninths are easy. If you notice, 1/9 is 0.1 repeating, 2/9 0.2 repeating. I didn't put 3/9 because that's 1/3, which is 0.3 repeating. 4/9 is 0.4 repeating. 5/9 is 0.5 repeating. 7/9 is 0.7 repeating. 8/9 is 0.8 repeating. Whenever you have a denominator of 9 and you have a numerator that is less than 9, it is always going to be that numerator repeated. So randomly, if you get, for example, 6/9 here, okay, 6/9, that will equal 0.6 repeating. Okay, I'm sorry about this difficulty here with the board. I don't know why that's happening. Tenths, pretty easy. 1/10 is 0.1. 3/10 0.3. 7/10 0.7. Sorry about that. Should be 0.7. And 9/10 is 0.9. And last but not least, I want to show you how to convert repeating decimals. But give me 1 second, please. Okay, welcome back. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so in order to convert repeating decimals into fractions, it's very simple. Let's look at the 3 that I gave you here. I say 0.4 repeating, that's 0.44444, which reduces to, I'm sorry, this is actually 4/9. That was my bad. That's 4/9. So 0.44444 reduces or turns into 4/9. How? How do you convert a repeating decimal, Mr. Moore? Well, it's quite simple. If I have 0.4 repeating, okay, we know that, like I have illustrated, it just keeps going on and on and on. It never ends. So in order to end it, okay, we're going to subtract 1 from the denominator. And it's literally that simple. So what I teach my students to do is as such. If I have any number repeating, for example here, 0.4 repeating, I'm going to go ahead and convert that into a decimal as if there was no repeating symbol. So if I just had 0.4, that's 4/10. However, it's repeating, so I subtract 1 from the denominator, and it becomes 4/9. Literally that simple. 0.65 repeating. If we took 0.65 repeating and just turned it into a decimal, into a fraction without the repeating symbol, this would be read as 65 hundredths. But since it's repeating, it never ends, so I'm going to end it by taking 1 away from the denominator. And I've got 65/99. 0.384 repeating. If we went ahead and converted that into a fraction without a repeating symbol, it would be 384 thousandths. However, it's repeating, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract 1 from the denominator to end it, to cut it, and we've got 384 over 999. So whenever you have a repeating decimal, pretend that the repeating part is gone and convert it into a fraction, as if the repeating symbol was not there. Once you've converted it into the proper fraction, then subtract 1 from the denominator. Thank you so very much. I hope you learned a lot and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.